Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this EMA press conference. Indeed, an EMA press conference with Director Emer Cook. As Eric explained this morning, for technical reasons, we're offering the infrastructure to organize this EMA press conference, and the infrastructure includes the moderator that will be me. But again, this is a press conference by Director Emer Cook from EMA. So I would like to give the floor immediately to the director, and then we will take questions that you may have. Director Cook, the floor is yours. Please press the speak button first, and then we can give you the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Much.
Yeah. Very good. And thank you very much for helping to facilitate this press conference. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending the press briefing. We're meeting here today in view of the unprecedented interest in the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine. And I wanted to highlight how important we're taking the current situation and what we have been doing to make sure that we are evaluating any possible rare side effects relating to this vaccine. Last week, our safety committee, the Pharmacovigilance and Risk Assessment Committee, did review the preliminary results on the events of blood clots in people who had received the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. We said very clearly that the benefit risk remains positive. We have continued to evaluate. We have continued to receive additional possible side events. We have pulled in experts from across the network, experts with specific expertise in coagulation and thromboembolic disorders. So it's an ongoing process. So I'm not here to give you the outcome of any scientific review. I'm here to explain the steps in the process, what we're doing, and when you can expect us to come to a conclusion. So we're doing this review in the light of concerns that we see from citizens in the EU and the current situation, which means that our priority, which is to ensure the safety of the vaccine, can be communicated. I have to first explain that a situation like this is not unexpected. When you vaccinate millions of people, it's inevitable that you have rare or serious incidences of illnesses that occur after vaccination. And our role at the EMA is to evaluate these to make sure that any suspected adverse reactions are rapidly investigated so we can figure out, is this a real side effect to the vaccine or is it a coincidence? Now, to do this, we have mobilized our Pharmacovigilance and Risk Assessment Committee, which is a safety committee made up of mainly from experts from the national competent authorities from across the EU. But we also have patient representatives and healthcare professional representatives on this committee. And in this case, we've also pulled in experts from some of our international partners to help us with the evaluation. And we've pulled in experts who have expertise in thromboembolic events. Events involving blood clots, some with very unusual features such as low number of platelets, have occurred in a very small number of people who have received the vaccine. And these reports have been received through EUDebates, the European database for suspected adverse drug reaction reports. But of course, we know that many people, many thousands of people, develop blood clots annually in the EU for many different reasons. So what we call on our expert committee to do is to establish whether there might be a causal relationship between the vaccinations and these events. In other words, whether the vaccines might have caused the adverse events that occurred or whether the events are likely to be due to other causes. So this requires a very rigorous analysis of all the data related to thromboembolic events. And the experts look in great detail at all the available data but also at the clinical circumstances surrounding the specific cases to determine whether the vaccine might have contributed or if it's likely to have been due to other causes. Now, last week, our expert committee met several times on this issue, but in the meantime, the interest in these events has actually stimulated additional reporting, so we're evaluating each of the incidences on a case-by-case event. So our experts are actually meeting again today. So having met most of last week, we have pulled together an ad hoc meeting again today to help us evaluate these cases with all the surrounding information that the member states will have. The experts will then carry on their assessment, and they again will meet on Thursday to come to a conclusion on the full information that has been gathered and to advise us as to whether there are any further actions that need to be taken. And we will inform the public of the outcome immediately after this meeting. I want to stress that our experts are working tirelessly to carry out this assessment as quickly as possible, but it needs a scientific evaluation. We need to have the facts first. We cannot come to a conclusion until we've done a thorough scientific analysis, and we owe it to the European citizens to deliver this clear and science-based response. So I want to also stress that at present, there is no indication that vaccination has caused these conditions. They have not come up in the clinical trials, and they're not listed as known or expected side events with this vaccine. In clinical trials, both the vaccinated people and the people who received the placebo have shown some very small numbers of blood clot developments. The number of thromboembolic events overall in the vaccinated people seems not to be higher than that seen in the general population. I don't need to remind you all here today that the COVID-19 pandemic is a global crisis with devastating health, social and economic impact, and it continues to be a major burden on EU health systems. Vaccines for COVID-19 help to protect individuals from becoming ill, especially healthcare professionals and vulnerable populations such as older people and those with chronic diseases. And this is a very important consideration in our assessment of the benefit risks. So while the investigation is ongoing, we are still firmly convinced that the benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine in preventing COVID-19 with its associated risk of hospitalization and death outweigh the risk of these side effects. In the meantime, anyone who has received the vaccine and has any concerns should contact their appropriate healthcare professional. It's important that people who suspect that they have a side effect after vaccination report this to the National Medicines Regulator or to a healthcare professional who can help them to do so. Thousands of people are dying across the EU every day. We have authorized 4 highly effective COVID vaccines that can protect against severe COVID disease. These are very rare thrombo events or blood clots. We need to evaluate these very, very carefully. At the ad hoc meeting today, we will have a further update. But as I said, it's Thursday when we expect the evaluation to conclude. EMA is taking this situation very, very seriously, and we will continue to make sure that the European population is informed about the ongoing analysis of this assessment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emer. I will now open the floor for questions. James Crisp, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. I hope you can hear me. There have been reports in the US of similar cases of blood clots linked to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. I'd like to ask Ms. Cook, please, if she has had any similar reports in the EU and if it's something that the EMA is looking into. Thank you.
Thank you. Emer, please press speak.
Yes, thank you very much for the question, and it's indeed very relevant. In fact, we are evaluating. We are looking at adverse events associated with all vaccines. At the moment, the current focus, because of the reported incident in Europe, is on the AstraZeneca, but we have looked at the background rates for all the vaccines currently in circulation, and it looks like there are similar numbers coming in across the world, but that is something that will have to be evaluated by our committee.
Thank you very much. Oliver Grimm, please.
Hello, hi, Oliver Grimm with the Austrian newspaper Die Presse. A question on a decision the US FDA took on the 25th of February concerning the suggested temperature for storage and transport of the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine. Does the EMA already have a plan for when it's going to, find any decision on this matter, give a recommendation to the member states, whether this vaccine really has to be stored and transported at minus 70 degrees Celsius or could be also handled at higher temperatures? Thank you.
Emer?
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, the logistics of rolling out some of these vaccines is very important for making sure that they reach all populations. So we are also looking at any new information on the storage conditions associated with the vaccine. We have looked at the in-use storage of the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, and we will be coming out with an evaluation on this very shortly.
Thank you. Frank Jordans. You have to switch on your microphone, Frank.
Hello, I hope you can hear me now. Frank Jordans from AP.
Go ahead.
So some details have been coming out about the cases that occurred in Germany, including that there were 3 deaths among the 7 CSVT cases. And I'm wondering if you have any further information about those and other cases across the European Union that you can share with us at this time.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, we are receiving cases and more details of the circumstances of those cases effectively as we speak. And what we're understanding is that there may be they may be associated with some subpopulations, or there may indeed be some subpopulations of the overall thromboembolic events. But I'm not in a position to comment on the particular cases that have come through from Germany, other than to say that these are being discussed at the Pharmacovigilance and Risk Assessment Committee.
Donato Mancini, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. Is there any indication that the series of adverse events, especially the most serious ones, are related in any way to specific batches? And does the batch hypothesis form part of the probe that is currently underway? Thank you.
Emer, please.
Yes, thank you very much. And this is a very important point because originally, I think many of you will be aware that some specific batches were suspected as being linked to these side events. So we have actually mobilized our biological working party to look carefully into the possibility or plausibility of any events linked to specific batches, or in fact any differences in manufacturing in any way that might lead to some disparities across batches. So that's part of the investigation. Thank you.
Catherine Fior, please.
Hi. I'd just like to ask a question about you. In your press release from yesterday, you said that the benefits outweigh the risks of side effects, and you've just said that it's highly effective and there are very, very, very rare events. I mean, given the high numbers that have already been deployed, do you think it is reasonable for countries to suspend the use of the vaccine in these circumstances? Just a question on the Pharmacovigilance Risk Committee. You say that it has national experts. Is there an overlap between these national experts and their national regulatory authority? I mean, the people who are informing those decisions, are they also informing their national decisions? And is it surprising, therefore, that national authorities are taking such a different view from the EMA?
Emer, thank you.
So, yeah, thank you very much. So let me just be clear that the expert committee is made up of experts from all of our 27 member states, and we have additional experts from healthcare professionals and from patients and some specialized expertise as well. The decisions that are taken at a national level are being taken in the context of the information that is available at the national level. And it is the country's prerogative to do so. It is our responsibility to focus on the science associated with these risks and whether there is scientific evidence to show that they are causally related to the vaccines, and that's what we're doing. And this means that we have to do a thorough analysis of all the cases that are reported and to evaluate whether this is a coincidence or indeed it is a possible causal effect.
Thank you. Thank you. Tom Clark, please. We don't hear you. We don't hear you. We see you, which is a good start, but hearing which is a good start.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Given the very real risk of people getting infected with COVID-19 and dying in the absence of vaccine, because the rollouts have been paused in their country, how grave a situation do you think Europe finds itself in with the fact that the vaccine rollouts have been paused in so many member states?
Emer, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's important for me to reiterate that our position is that the benefits continue to outweigh the risks. But this is a serious concern and it does need serious and detailed scientific evaluation. This is what we're involved in at the moment. And it is only when that scientific evaluation has been done that we'll be in a proper position to respond to that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sander van Hoorn. Ga je gang, Sander.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. Something about the work of the expert committee. The research, is it more physical examination or is it more statistical examination? And in the light of that, what kind of information do you need to, on Thursday, unequivocally prove or disprove a causal effect? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you permit me, I might ask my pharmacovigilance expert to respond specifically on this, because indeed it's a combination. And indeed, we've changed our procedures a little bit so to make sure that we're getting a really detailed case review, not just waiting for them to come into the database. But I think it's important that you get a real view from our pharmacovigilance experts. So I pass over to Dr. Peter Arlett to give you a little bit more information in this respect.
Thank you, Emer. Can I ask Peter to raise his hand, please? To push speak, rather. Sorry. Raise your hand and speak. Yeah. We don't have an audio source. You have to change the source of your microphone, I'm being told.
Maybe he can use my one.
That looks like a good solution.
Good solution. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, colleagues, hopefully you can see me and you can hear me. My name's Peter Arlett. I'm pleased to be able to support the press conference and answer the question. Let's start by understanding the European system for monitoring safety. So when a product goes on the market, we have good evidence of safety from the quality aspects, from the preclinical aspects, and from the clinical trial aspects. And it's very important to note that with these vaccines, we had very large clinical trials, which gave very good evidence that they were safe. Now, once a product gets on the market, of course, you use the vaccine in far, far, far greater numbers, and we therefore put in place lots of measures to ensure that we're collecting data very quickly. Firstly, and centrally to the safety monitoring, is the reports from individuals that have been vaccinated and from healthcare professionals through the different so-called spontaneous reporting systems. In addition, we have put in place real-world data studies or epidemiological studies, which are extremely useful. For example, they tell us the background rates of certain rare events, including thromboembolic events that we're talking about today. And so what is the Safety Committee looking at? Well, the Safety Committee is looking at all the available evidence. It'll be looking at the clinical trial results. It'll be looking at the dossiers that were submitted at the time of authorization. It critically will be looking at the epidemiological evidence. So it'll be understanding how many blood clots would we expect to see in the European population in 7 days after vaccination, in 14 days after vaccination, for example. It'll be looking at the overall vaccination rates in the different countries, and then it'll be putting the reports of blood clots, and particularly reports of very rare side effects that have come in, into that context of background events. So you ask the question, is it statistical or is it physical? I would say it is a combination of looking at population data, be it clinical trials or be it from real-world evidence, combined with a very detailed review of individual case reports, where you look to see if there might be another potential cause of a blood clot, or whether there was what the time link was between vaccination and the symptoms first arising. Things like this is a very important part of the clinical evaluation of the issue. And then what the committee will be doing is putting all of that together to then be able to draw any conclusions as to whether these are consequential events that have happened just by chance, because blood clots are very common. I mean, thousands of blood clots occur in European individuals every day, or whether there might very rarely be a link to vaccination. And that's the question that they're going to conclude on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. You were invisible, but we heard you, and that was very good. Thank you. Next question is for David Carretta.
Thank you very much, David Carretta, Radio Radicale Italian Radio. What are the options for the conclusion in 2 days' time? Withdrawing the authorization of the vaccine, and in this case, what are the procedures that should take place? Modifying the product information to update the side effects, or something else? Thank you very much.
EMA, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, I mean, there are just to acknowledge that there are a number of options that could be possible, and I wouldn't like to speculate on what the final conclusion might be. Our priority is to ensure that the vaccines can be used safely in the European population. If this means that an additional warning might be necessary, we look into that. If we believe that there is a problem that cannot be solved, we will take the necessary action to deal with that. It really depends on the outcome of the expert evaluation, but I can tell you there are a large number of options available for us depending on the outcome of the scientific evaluation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Susanna Freixas, please.
Thank you very much, Susanna Freixas, SC Expresso. Just a follow-up question. So if I understand correctly, you are clearly recommending countries to keep going with the vaccination campaign with AstraZeneca. So I would like to ask you as well, do you fear that with this decision of some member states to pause the vaccination with this vaccine, that people will no longer trust this vaccine? Thank you.
Emer, please. Emer, I think you have to push the speak button.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. And I have to stress again that trust in the safety and efficacy of the vaccines that we have authorized is paramount for us. And our job is to make sure that we can maintain trust in these vaccines based on a proper scientific evaluation. And this is why we have put such high priority on coming to a clear conclusion based on the evaluation of the cases that are coming in as we speak and whether or not there is a causal event. And we are worried that that there may be an effect on the trust of the vaccines. But our job is to make sure that that the products that we authorize are safe and can be trusted by the European citizens.
Thank you. Marcus Becker. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to know, was EMA contacted by member states before they decided to suspend the vaccinations, and if so, by which member states? And have the member states already signaled if they would adhere to whatever the EMA will be recommending on Thursday? And maybe also a little technical question. Could you give us maybe a rough estimate on as to which hour we might expect the announcement on Thursday? Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Emer, please.
So thank you very much. And I have to say that it's really been a dynamic situation, and we have been receiving information from individual countries. We've been convening meetings, not just of our experts, but of our heads of regulatory authorities to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information from the countries concerned. So we have received ongoing information from the different countries, and we are making sure that we share this information with all the member states. Thursday, sorry, the time at which we expect to come to a conclusion. I'm afraid I'll have to come back to you on this, but as far as I understand, it's going to be the afternoon of Thursday.
Segura, please.
Hello, do you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
Okay, good. Natalia from the Catalan News Agency. I have some questions. You still did not respond on the question of if you recommend to keep going with vaccination. I mean, like, what is better to do for countries, just to keep going with vaccination or to stop it? Or do you think that both options are possible here? And if I may, another question on your hypothesis of what is going on here. Is it for you what you say? The main hypotheses are like this is related with previous pathologies, maybe, or specific batches of the vaccines. And in the case of the batches, like, have you detected cases of blood problems in more than one batch, or just this is just like focused on specific ones?
Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you very much. Yes, and I think I have very clearly said that we have outlined that the benefit risk of this vaccine remains positive. This is the conclusion that we published last week. It's the conclusion that we published yesterday. With respect to the link with specific batches, this is something that we did investigate initially when Austria suspended the use of a particular vaccine batch because of events possibly related to that batch. At the time, we could not find any batch-related effect that would be plausible. But we continue to investigate that. But what I can say is that the events are now, as we're seeing more events reported from across Europe, we're seeing that more batches are involved, and therefore it's unlikely that it's a batch-specific event. But we cannot rule it out. We cannot rule out that there may be something related to the manufacturing that is concerned in some way.
Thank you. Tobias Kaiser, please.
Yes, Tobias Kaiser, Welt. Thank you very much. I have two questions, if I may. The first one: have you had similar reports of thromboembolic events from the UK? And if not so, would there be indication that something with the production process in Europe is wrong? And the second question: do you get similar reports on thromboembolic events for the BioNTech and Moderna vaccines? Thank you very much.
You. Email, please.
So thank you very much for the question. Just with respect to our collaboration with the UK, I want to make it clear that we've received all reports of serious thromboembolic events from the UK, and these are taken into account in our analysis. We're also looking at comparisons with thromboembolic events across all vaccines, but the focus of our review at the moment is on the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Thank you. Lyudmila Kotlyarova, please.
Do you hear me?
I hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Lyudmila Kotlyarova from the German editorial office of the Russian news agency S9 News. My question is, don't you think that the decision to suspend the vaccinations with AstraZeneca was a populist one? Because we can consider equal cases in Germany, according to Paul Ehrlich Institute. There were already, until the end of February, 6 events in Germany, and we also have about 160 death cases after the both other vaccines, Moderna and BioNTech Pfizer vaccines, and the vaccination with these vaccines was not suspended. And the second question: do your experts see themselves under pressure now? What if you speak about the assessment of other vaccines for all? The Sputnik vaccine from Russia. Do you expect any effects for the vaccines to be assessed or evaluated? Thank you.
Thank you, Lyudmila. Emma, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not for me to comment on the specific situation in any member state. What I can say is that we are looking at now all the events that are coming in from across the EU, and we are evaluating that in the context of the number of vaccines that have been used across Europe. And that is the primary focus of our review. And if in the event that there are similar cases or other type of events coming in with respect to other vaccines, we will review them as carefully and as seriously as we're doing in this case. But at the moment, our focus is on the AstraZeneca vaccine because of the concerns that have been raised and the need for a thorough scientific review.
Thank you, Emil. And the next question is for Maurice Loveday. Maurice, go ahead.
Hi, yes. Loveday Morris from the Washington Post. You talked about the overall incidence of thrombosis being what you'd expect in the wider population. Can you say the same for the incidence of the more rare CVST, or is that a particular concern, since that's what seems to be the concern here in Germany?
Thank you. Emer, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll ask Dr. Peter Arlett to address this, because it's a very good question, and it really goes to the nub of the rare events that we might be seeing. Peter, please, over to you.
So thank you very much, and I suspect you'll hear me but not see me again. But thank you for the question. So as previously stated, and just to reiterate, if we look at what we would expect in the European population in terms of thromboembolic events, the number of reported cases following vaccination is actually far lower than we would expect in the background population. The review is focusing on a small number of case reports of very rare and rather unusual thrombotic events, including thrombosis combined with thrombocytopenia. Now, when you get down to individual cases, 1, 2, 3, 4 cases, then the epidemiological approach becomes much more difficult. Firstly, it becomes difficult to get the background rates. There's less published in the literature, there's less available in electronic healthcare databases, for example. And so therefore the focus becomes much more on looking at the clinical features of the individual reported case. Did the patient have underlying malignancy, for example, which might have caused the thrombosis, coincidental to the vaccination? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maria Psara, please.
Hello, thanks for the floor. I hope you can hear me.
We hear you. Go ahead, Maria.
Hello, Maria Psara, Open TV Greece. I have one question. How many, because there is a lot of speculation, how many cases of thromboembolic episodes and how many deaths are connected by member states with the vaccine? And how many cases do you analyze? Thank you.
Emer, please.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. And you will see that I deliberately refrain from giving you specific numbers, because these numbers are very, very dynamic. And the numbers that we had as of 10th of March were that 30 cases of thromboembolic events had been reported among close to 5 million people vaccinated. But I know that that number is wrong, because even over the weekend, we've had additional cases being reported. So it's very difficult for me to give you an absolute number, other than to say that we have asked for. We've asked for the countries to give us as much detail they can on all of the events that they have seen, and we're looking at those in very on a case-by-case basis at our meeting today. But it's very difficult to give you numbers, because they're evolving as we speak. And maybe it's important to say also that once there is knowledge about a possible event, sort of, that you expect to see more reporting. You expect that people will pay more attention. You expect to see more an increase in the reporting, and that's good, because it helps us to understand better the overall incidence in the population.
Thank you, Emer. Naomi O'Leary, please.
Hi, thanks very much for taking my question. So the very rare events which involved the low platelet numbers that you're focusing on, I know these happened in Germany, I think Norway as well. Could you tell us which countries have reported those specific rare events with the low platelets and so on that you're focusing on? And then if I could also ask, how common, if it does turn out to be a side effect, but a rare side effect, how common would it have to be in order to outweigh the benefit of this vaccine in terms of combating or protecting from COVID-19? Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Emer, please.
Yes, so thank you, Naomi. Indeed, these events are precisely what is being discussed at the moment, and you are aware of the events from Germany and from Norway. As I said, we are receiving additional information from member states virtually as we speak, so it's not possible for me to tell you whether these are the only ones or whether there are more. And with respect to whether there is an absolute number, I'm afraid it wouldn't be wise to speculate in this regard. I think what we would like to see is to understand what the plausibility of that these events are related to the vaccines, and if so, if there is a plausible relationship, how best to manage that relationship, bearing in mind that these vaccines are also very important in terms of preventing deaths from COVID-19.
Thank you. Michaela Gergisham, please.
Yes, hello. I hope you can hear me. I was wondering if EMA would recommend or will recommend to the member states to carry out background checks on people who wish to be vaccinated or receive an invitation to vaccination. I can tell you this is absolutely not the case in Belgium. Here we receive an invitation and to go to get a vaccine. We don't know which vaccine is going to be. We cannot choose. And we don't have any medical background checks. I don't know whether I am subject to thrombosis or I have autoimmune maybe problems in my systems or in my family. I don't know anything about it. I just get the vaccines they give it. So will EMA recommend such background checks before vaccinating? Thank you.
Emer, please.
Yeah. Thank you, and indeed an excellent question, and something again I would like to ask my expert, Dr. Arlett, to respond on.
So thanks very much. I think the first thing to say is to remind ourselves that we're talking about COVID-19 disease, which is killing thousands of patients across Europe every day, and that we're talking about vaccines which have got very high levels of efficacy, so they're preventing serious disease and death. The primary assessment by the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, the primary assessment is a vigorous scientific assessment looking at all available evidence to see whether the evidence would suggest that a causal link between these very rare but serious events that have been seen and vaccination, or whether they're coincidental, they're occurring by chance. If the conclusion on the balance of probabilities is towards a causal association, then there'll be a very careful consideration of whether there are any particular features of the individuals that have been vaccinated and had these events that might have put them at risk. And there are well-established risks for thrombosis and thromboembolism, but whether they are relevant in this specific case, because these are very, very rare events, will need to be analysed. If there does appear to be a causal association, and that's an if, and if there does appear to be a particular profile of individuals that are getting these rare events, then that potentially gives an opportunity to reduce risk. Now, but there's a lot of ifs in that sentence, and I think we'll need to wait until Thursday evening to see what the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee concludes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, again for invisible intervention. Kai Kupferschmidt, please.
Thank you very much. Just really briefly, two things. In Germany, there is debate that what we're seeing in terms of the thrombotic events is actually the outcome of hemolytic uremic syndrome, which would mean that the thrombosis itself is really not the main problem. And I would just like to understand whether that has been something that's been discussed at EMA and whether other countries have seen a similar signal. And then the other thing, you've made it very clear why batches might not be, the problem here. But I wondered, can you say whether all of the vaccines come from the same production facility? I mean, apart from the batches, there is, of course, the question of the manufacturers.
Emer, please. Emer, please press speak.
Physiology.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're there.
Yes, you're there.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so I was just conferring on as to how much information we could respond on the issue of the specificity of the hemolytic events. I think the answer I would give at this point is that the case definition is very, very important, and this is what helps us to understand what we're seeing and then what the impact is. And that's, again, why we get the experts together to do that. So this work is ongoing at the moment. And then in terms of the batches, as far as I'm aware, in fact, I'm going to have to check, but I can do this actually while during this meeting. As far as I'm aware, all of the events are coming from the European sites, but I know that we have been doing some ongoing evaluation of additional manufacturing sites, and I'm not sure that we have actually done this analysis yet, but it is part of what we're doing in trying to determine whether there might be a manufacturing related aspect or a batch related aspect. So I'll have to follow up on the specificities, but just to tell you that this is part of the ongoing evaluation.
Thank you very much. Augustin Palokai, please.
Hello, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
We hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. We knew from the beginning, and you've stressed several times, that the trust is of utmost importance for the success of vaccination. You said that you have national experts in the expert committee as well. So why this discrepancy now between EMA recommendation and decision of national authorities to suspend the vaccination? Because this will confuse the citizens, and it is already happening because many citizens are refusing to get AstraZeneca vaccine. So would it be wiser to say that it's better to suspend vaccination until we come to the final clear conclusion, rather than to say continue with vaccination until we come to the conclusion? Thank you.
Thank you. Emer, please.
So our job is to determine whether the benefit and risks, the benefits of this vaccine outweigh the risk. This is what our scientific evaluation has concluded. We looked specifically at the events that we had seen until Thursday last week. We came out with a public statement at the end of our pharmacovigilance and risk assessment committee last week. We have continued to receive additional information. We had another evaluation, ongoing evaluation, where we reiterated that we consider the benefit outweighs the risk. We have additional information coming in, and if this changes, then we will come to a clear conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Emer. We will stop this press conference at 3 o'clock, so we'll take a few more questions. Daniel Weber.
Thank you very much. Yes, but I wanted to come back to the last question. Still, I think people do not understand why there is such a different assessment in member states, which all rely to information from EMA. Do you feel that the authority of the European Medicine Agency is questioned here? And was it premature to authorize the vaccine? Thank you.
Emer, please.
So my understanding of the position of the member state is that they're very clearly waiting for our review before they decide on what action to take. And that is a responsibility that we take very, very seriously. in terms of the available evidence that was there to allow us to come to a conclusion on in fact all of the vaccines, is that we had very large clinical data sets that showed safety and efficacy in large populations. I think in the case of AstraZeneca, we had efficacy in 18,000 patients, safety in somewhere in the region of 30,000 patients. Now, of course, we've moved on to real-life vaccination, so we can put this in context. But we remain convinced on the basis of the evidence that we have that the benefit of this vaccine outweighs the risks associated with this with the vaccine.
Thank you very much. Adam Parsons, please.
If there was to be a causal link between the incidence of cerebral thrombosis and the AstraZeneca vaccine, but it only affected a relatively small number of people, how would EMA evaluate that balance? And the second one is, I wonder if you could respond directly to the accusation that has been made by a number of people that this is about politics rather than public health and a curious desire to undermine trust in the AstraZeneca vaccine. How would you respond to that, please?
So two questions. One, if there was a causal link, what would we do? Well, I'm not in a position to answer that because that's what I'm asking our experts to do, and they will advise. They will advise based on the scientific evidence and nothing but. And in terms of to come back to the review and the implication that there might be something other than science behind this review, I want to firmly put on record that our evaluation is guided by science and independence and nothing but. Thank you very much.
And with this, we will conclude the press conference. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having raised your questions. I see there are still some questions from journalists. We could not handle all of them, but I think I can say that if you have questions, feel free to contact the colleagues from EMA. Big thanks to Emir Cook and to the invisible Peter Arlett. And have a very nice day and stay healthy. Thank you.